some eggs.
There are a lot of new chicken owners, and there's a lot of things going on right now about the feed and people panicking because they're saying they're not getting as many eggs as they normally do. So I thought it might be a good idea just to go through and show some people some different things that you can buy for your chickens, just in general for the new chicken owners to know about, and also that stuff that might help them with egg production. I want to start off by saying that it's perfectly normal for hens to slow down during the winter time because there's not as much sunlight and it's cold, so their bodies are going to take that break. And another reason why they're going to slow down with egg production this time of year is because they're going to go through a molting process when they're going to lose their old feathers and regrow new ones. And that takes a lot of energy because feathers are about 80% protein. So growing that back is going to be really hard on them. So it's normal to take that break, but a lot of people are blaming the feed. And I personally don't think it's a feed issue, but I'm curious about what other people think. So please tell me down below in the comments what your experiences are with this, and just some stories and some things that you've experienced and heard. The Nature Wise is the feed that I prefer using for mine. We'll take a look at the tag. This one is by Nutrena. Let's try to get a closer look at that. It's a 16% protein. It has prebiotics and probiotics in it. It's 2.5% fat, and it has yucca root in it, which they say is good for repelling flies. That's the main issue. I started using this in the summertime. I was a little skeptical, but I will say that I did think it helped. It has vitamin D3 in it, and it also has some herbs, essential oils, a lot of really good stuff in here. So this is what I keep mine on because when I tried it, I was really happy with the results. It also comes in the pelleted form. And then Purina, this is one that a lot of people have been complaining about. This one is also a 16% protein. And it has extra oyster shells in it for calcium. There's everything it claims that it does. And that's kind of unnecessary to list because no feed is going to have that in it. But anyways, that's besides the point. So I did try this once recently, actually, because we had a ripped bag come in off of the truck. And I got it for a really cheap price. So I was like, why not? I'll try it. And I will say that while my hens were on this feed a few weeks ago, they weren't laying any eggs besides maybe one a day. And that was pretty weird, but I didn't think too much of it because it's winter time. And, you know, take this with a grain of salt because it could just be a coincidence. That was just my experience with it. But then when I put them back on this, on the Nutrena Nature Wise, they started laying a lot of eggs again. But like I said, that could be a coincidence, but let me know what you think. And the Purina Laina does come in a pellet and a crumble. And then here's just regular Nutrena. This one's going to be a couple dollars cheaper than the Nature Wise. It's still a really good feed. It just doesn't have all of the extra like herbs and essential oils in it. It's still a 16% protein, 2.5% fat, 8% fiber. I heard something. This warehouse, I manage this place, by the way. We're here while it's closed so we don't disturb the customers. Legend has it is haunted here. But what's kind of scary is last weekend we did have someone break in. So being a little careful. Now this is just a treat. It's scratch greens. And we also have a high protein version of this. This is by Nutrena. And this is more of a treat. This is not a complete diet. And then we have all flock for people with a mixed flock. It's by Nutrena. I personally think Nutrena is a really good brand. And one thing I like about them is their ingredients are consistent. So, you know, what you're getting each time is going to be the same. It's not going to fluctuate with what's in the bag. And we also have our own local feed too. So, you know, please support local when you can. Here's Meatbird. A lot of people are switching to Meatbird because it's a lot higher in protein, as you can see. And the added protein will help your hens recover from molting. But if you're going to feed them this during the winter, just make sure you're providing oyster shells or some kind of calcium supplement if they do start laying eggs again, so that way their eggs don't come out weak. It's by Nutrena, Nature-wise, and it's called Feather Fixer. It's an 18% protein instead of the regular 16% that the layers are typically on. There's another look at all that. And the extra protein in this is just really good to help them when they're molting so that they can regrow their feathers a little bit faster. And like I said earlier, it's natural for your hens to take a break when they're molting and when the days are shorter and when it's colder. But adding a little bit of extra protein can help somewhat. All right, so now we're going to go into the store. So yeah, there's been a lot of break-ins at some local businesses lately, including ours. And I've also heard that there's been a lot of issues with people stealing chickens from other people's backyards, so keep your coops locked up at night. We've had a lot of issues here lately. Let me know if you're experiencing that where you live too, because I'm sure it's not only happening here. All right, so here's our chicken section. It's a small local store, so we don't have a huge selection, but I'll show you what we have. We have these. It has oregano in it. It has mint, turmeric, basil, parsley. And my chickens really love this. And then here's grit. If you free range your hens, you probably won't need this because they're going to be able to find it out in the nature. But if you have them confined, make sure, especially if you're feeding treats, that they have access to grit so that way they can eat this and it'll help grind up the feed that they're eating because birds swallow their food whole, so they're going to need this to help with digestion. And then we have scratch. It's just like cracked corn, different types of grains. It's just a treat for them. This is not a complete diet. And then we also have the high protein version. That's a 12% protein, 4% fat. And this one basically has the same stuff as this one, like the barley and the oats and the corn. But this also has like pelleted soybeans and black oil sunflower seeds. And some people who want to avoid feeding soy to their hens because they don't want that in their diet either when they eat the eggs, you can get, and this goes back to the feed that we were talking about out there, Nutrena has something called Hardy Hen, and that's a soy-free feed that you can give them. So here's just some different treats, some chick food, medicated and non-medicated. If you go with the medicated for baby chicks, it's not a bad idea in the beginning because this will protect them from coccidiosis, which could be fatal if they contract that. And then here's some different mealworms and grubs. Black soldier fly larvae is a really good one for them. It's really high in protein and calcium. And again, just feed in moderation so they don't get fat. But the protein this time of year, with it being cold and with the hens molting, it's not a bad idea to give them some of that occasionally. And this stuff's pretty good. This has different kinds of seeds and grains in it. It has flax seeds, little pieces of vegetables. It's by Mana Pro. If you want to, some people will light their hens during the winter because the light and the warmth will trick them into thinking it's spring, and then they might start laying more eggs for you. I personally don't do it because, one, I don't want to deal with the hassle of the extension cords and the risk of fire. So if you do take this route, just be really careful, make sure that this is secure to something. But I prefer to give my hens a break because it's natural for them to take a break anyway, so I'm not going to force them to lay. Some people use LED lights instead so that they don't have the risk of the fire. You're not going to get the heat that way. But as long as your coop is, built properly, there's no drafts getting in, your hens should stay warm enough. Here's some dewormers. That's another thing to keep in mind. If your hens aren't laying enough, and again, like I keep saying, it's normal in the wintertime for a decrease, but they could have worms because if you think about it, if they have a parasite in them soaking up all of their nutrients, their body's not going to have the energy to produce an egg. So make sure you're deworming them. We have some natural ones. We have some conventional ones. And then you could also use diatomaceous earth. This stuff is 100% natural, and you can mix it in their bedding to keep mites away. They can take a dust bath in it so that mites don't live on their feathers, and you can mix it in their feed. And it acts as a natural dewormer, so there's no withdrawal period with the eggs, so it's really nice. This is just some odor control. And then here's this. I don't know how well this works, but I've had a lot of customers tell me that they had success with it. It just has some vitamin D3 in it, marigold, which makes the yolks really pretty. You just mix 1 packet to a gallon of water. All right, we're gonna get ready to wrap it up, but I wanted to mention this. Black oil sunflower seeds, I talked about it a little bit before, but this is really nice because it has natural oils in it, which is gonna make their feathers really pretty. It's really high in protein, so it's good for this time of year. It's really healthy for them in moderation. And let's see. Safflower seeds are very similar to the black oil sunflower seeds, whereas they have some antioxidants in them. They are high in protein. And again, like I keep saying, just feed in moderation and make sure your birds have access to grit. This is high in fat. And then here's the ingredients down here. It's beef suet, corn, milo, wheat, millet, and sunflower seeds. This is good for the winter time. You don't really want to give them this regularly just because of the high fat content, but I give this to mine on like a really, really cold winter night and they do fine. So whole shelled corn is good to give your birds in the winter time. You don't really need this during the summer. It's rich in carbohydrates, which is a good energy source. So you can give this to them when it's cold and that'll keep them going. So you can give them cracked corn or whole shelled corn. The whole shell I prefer because it has more oils in it. I've been told it's more nutritionally sound, but if you have like bantam breeds, little small ones, you can go with the cracked corn. I make my own homemade scratch, so as you saw at the store, you can buy some pre-made scratch, or with all the other ingredients I was showing you, you can make your own. So what mine is, and I'll have another video on this, but mine is barley, wheat, oats, black oil sunflower seeds, mealworms, grubs, and shrimp. And you don't need to add all that stuff. You can do this, you know, if you wanted to just add a couple of the ingredients, you can. In the wintertime, I would definitely include black oil sunflower seeds for the protein and corn for the carbohydrates. During the summer, you don't really need the corn, and you can cut back on the black oil. And if you didn't want to spend the money to put all those different grains in, you could just stick with the whole oats. But the grains weren't really that expensive, and where I get them from, and at a lot of feed stores, you can get them by the pound. I also put some safflower seeds in here, which are the little white ones, the little white seeds, because they're just rich in antioxidants and rich in protein like the black oil is. And my chickens really like it. And since they weren't laying eggs for a while, which again, that's normal, I just thought that, you know, adding all these extra goodies with all of the different levels of protein, all the different nutrients, I thought it might help, and it did. It could be a coincidence, but as soon as I went back to the Nutrena Nature Wise feed and this homemade scratch that I made, I did see a big difference.